That's, I think, yeah, they call that the big ass fan. There's a company here called the Big Ass Fan.
Yeah.
It's a real name. They make fans for factories. Yeah.
Whoa.
It's a clever
Yeah.
name. Yeah.
I mean, when you're dealing with a tech genius, expect anything, right? Evil villain style, escape route.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah.
Hey man, by the way, I'm stoked for this conversation. The idea for Viet Kieu Hustle has been something kind of floating around in my head for easily over a decade. And as you know, and as we shared, I'm coming up on 50 years. My family being in the States, and I thought it was a kind of a cool time to get this ball rolling.
Right.
Can you give us? And I'm all about the story of the Viet Kieu story, being that our family were first generation American, came over right at the end. I think we were actually one of the last planes leaving, and we came here. My folks were young; they're in their early 20s. My dad had lost a leg, and he found himself with no community in America like there is now, not knowing the language, not knowing anything. And I watched him hustle, hence the word Viet Kieu Hustle for the podcast, and really do all kinds of different things. And I'll maybe share some of that some other time. But can you share your family story? Because we're all pretty much in the same boat, different years arriving in the States, but man, one heck of a common background there.
Yeah. No, thanks, man. First of all, man, I really appreciate it that you asked me to be on this. When you mentioned it to me and what you're doing and what you want to talk about, man, I was all for it. And if it wasn't for you, I don't think I would ever do anything like this. So I'm a very discreet, kind of like a very low key kind of person. So, but this is for you. I do anything pretty much, man.
Appreciate it, man.
But, I appreciate that. Yeah. And giving me a voice, I guess, in some respect, to say what's on my mind and stuff like that, and answering your questions, and to answer your question, I actually, my parents are they were refugee. Actually, my father was a refugee. He went there, and I was here. So I grew up in Da Nang with the grandparents. So I flew in on a plane when he got to the U.S. and did all the immigration paperwork, and then my sister and I flew to the U.S. and immigrated into California, Los Angeles, actually. So, but and you mentioned the idea of being a VK hustle, and I think that definition itself is my family. My father was straight up. I think he was a hustler, and he got into a lot of trouble for it. But I think that's, you mentioned your father, and you mentioned, I think that generation in itself is, it has that mentality, of you either do it or you die kind of mentality, my father was that has that mentality. And I think in some degree, I think I probably got that from him, just kind of this sort of ability, or this sort of knack for just going out and do stuff for yourself and do stuff, that means something. I don't actually, I don't really know my father that well. I actually lived with him in totality 5 years, but in those 5 years, I just remember him saying one thing to me that stuck with me ever since, was that, I think one time my toy or something I was playing with, and it broke, and I threw it in the trash, and he picked it up and he said, "Why did you throw this out?"